Picture this, it's 1637 and Dutch citizens are mortgaging their houses. Not for land, not for gold, not even for ships full of spices from the east. They're mortgaging them for flowers. Sounds like a joke, right? Nope, dead serious. At the height of Holland's wealth, a single rare tulip bulb, the Semper Augustus, could sell for the price of a luxury canal house in Amsterdam. Imagine selling your dream home for a plant that could die if you watered it wrong. People called it the miracle of the market. In truth, it was history's first NFT, only this one actually bloomed. Merchants signed contracts, swapped promises, and mortgaged property, all for the idea of owning a tulip. And it wasn't just nobles. Barbers, carpenters, even housemaids jumped in. Because when your neighbor gets rich off a flower, you don't ask why, you ask where do I buy one? Pretty soon, no one was trading real tulips anymore, just pieces of paper saying they'd get one later. In other words, the Dutch accidentally invented flower futures. It was the moment humanity proved something timeless. We don't need to understand to believe, we just need to fear missing out. A nation famous for logic and discipline decided that a flower could make them rich forever. And when the music stopped, those petals and the prices fell fast. The funny thing, 4 centuries later, we're still at it. Today, it's not tulips, it's tech stocks, real estate, crypto, or pixelated monkeys. Every era has its own flower, and humanity never stops planting new ones. Because greed, my friend, always finds a new outfit. Welcome to the Tulip Bubble, the story of how beauty became currency, and how the smartest species on Earth proved that intelligence is no vaccine against a good old-fashioned get-rich-quick fantasy. 17th century Holland was thriving. They didn't just trade goods, they traded the world itself. Dutch ships ruled the seas, hauling pepper from India, silk from China, gold from Africa, and enough stories to make any rich nation a little delusional. If England had Shakespeare and Italy had Michelangelo, Holland had tax returns, a place where even painters had to declare income. The Dutch were disciplined, hard-working, famously frugal. They built so much wealth that the entire country suddenly found itself a little bored. And you know what happens when a clever nation gets too much free time. Something stupid but spectacular is about to go down. Amsterdam became the New York City of the 1600s, busy streets, packed taverns, banks buzzing like beehives. And amid all that prosperity, people discovered the one thing money couldn't yet buy, refined taste. Then came the tulip, a strange, stunning flower from Turkey. You couldn't eat it, drink it, or build anything with it. But it was so beautiful that Europe's wealthiest looked at it and said, "Finally, something worthy of my wallet." Owning a rare tulip became a status symbol, like wearing a Rolex on your windowsill. You didn't need to say a word, just place the pot by the window, and the neighbors would know you'd made it. One flower, 2 meanings. To ordinary folks, it was beauty. To merchants, it was elegance you could invoice. The craze spread like the world's first TikTok trend. Everyone wanted one, everyone feared being left out. The same sailors who once conquered oceans now battled over garden plots. An empire built on steel and sea winds suddenly trembled before fragile petals. Because when you already have everything, the only thing left to chase is what nobody else can have. And that tiny urge to be just a little more special than the next guy was the seed that grew into the most ridiculous financial fever in human history. One chilly morning in 1634, inside a crowded Amsterdam tavern, a man held up a tulip bulb and said, "Hey friend, I'll sell you this one, but you'll get it next spring." The other guy grinned, "Deal, but I'm gonna sell that contract to someone else." And just like that, the world's first financial market was born over beer. People suddenly realized you didn't have to grow tulips to get rich. You just had to sell the promise of a tulip. No one wanted to keep the real bulbs anymore, too risky, they rot. What they wanted was a signed paper, a VIP ticket to easy money. The Netherlands entered a glorious age of collective delusion. Tulip papers were traded like stocks, prices jumped by the hour, contracts changed hands like Pokémon cards. People sold houses, workshops, maybe even spouses, jokingly, we think. The mania spread faster than any plague. Carpenters, blacksmiths, maids, everyone became a flower investor. The motto was, just hodl your bulb, bro, it's going to the moon. Rocket. Markets were flooded with blind faith. They called themselves lovers of flowers, but no one looked at flowers anymore, only at price charts. Trading floors buzzed louder than fish markets. Winners strutted out today, losers sold furniture tomorrow. Tulips stopped being symbols of beauty and became the first profitable measure of human stupidity. And here's the irony. The Dutch didn't invent financial bubbles. They just invented the prettiest one. The world looked at Holland and thought, they're rich, they're smart, they must know what they are doing. But really, they were just playing a 17th century version of Pass the Tulip, a last one holding it loses. It's a game humanity still hasn't quit. 400 years later, early 1637, Amsterdam woke up from a money dream and realized no one wanted flowers anymore. One cold morning, a merchant walked into the exchange, held up his tulip contract and said, "Selling any takers?" Silence. He dropped the price, again, then laughed nervously. Guess everyone's still asleep. Spoiler, they weren't asleep. They were just awake before he was. Within days, the so-called gold with petals was worth less than the pot it sat in. Prices fell like petals in the wind, beautiful but gone in seconds. The rich lost fortunes, the poor lost homes, and the smug lost their smiles. A bulb that once bought a mansion could now barely buy an onion. If social media had existed, #tulip crash would have been trending across Europe. Traders wept, wives screamed, and painters did what painters do best, turn the disaster into art. The Dutch government, completely lost. They held emergency meetings, but no one knew how to handle an economic collapse caused by flowers being too pretty. And just like that, the tulip mania was over. No blood, no war, just a national hangover and one massive collective embarrassment. A nation that had once ruled the seas was now humbled by a houseplant. But don't laugh too hard. Look around 2025, we're still buying new tulips every day. Crypto, real estate, meme stocks, influencer coins. Same game, different logo. The old Dutch called it expensive stupidity. We call it investment opportunity. The only thing that changed was the font on the contract. The tulip petals fell, but the seeds of greed kept sprouting century after century, as if humanity were watered by wishful thinking. If history had a moral, it would probably be, never underestimate our ability to fool ourselves, especially when it comes in a pretty color. When the tulip high finally wore off, the Netherlands woke up with a headache no medicine could fix. Not from wine, from debt. Those shiny contracts once tossed around in taverns now lay crumpled on tables, worth about as much as the napkins underneath them. People who dreamed of getting rich from flowers now just wanted a potato for dinner. Merchants lost fortunes. Craftsmen lost their homes. And the get-rich-quick crowd, they vanished just as quickly. As one Amsterdam joke went, the tulip boom didn't end with a bang, it ended with one big collective sigh. Another popular quip floated around the city. Want to know how valuable tulips are? Try saying the word flower in front of someone who owes money. Families collapsed. Fathers who'd once told their children, this tulip will change our lives, now avoided eye contact at dinner. Some people even fled the city, easier than facing their neighbors' smirks. The Dutch government called an emergency meeting. Officials sat around the table, grim-faced. What do we do about flowers? Silence. How exactly do you solve an economic crisis caused by something being too beautiful? Courts finally ruled all tulip contracts are void. Buyers lost their money. Sellers lost their reputations. And an entire nation lost its smug belief that it was smarter than everyone else. But amid the wreckage, one thing survived: greed. It merely took a nap waiting for its next opportunity. 3 centuries later, it woke up with new names. The dot-com bubble, the housing bubble, the crypto boom. And every time, humanity whispered the same magic words. No, this time it's different. It wasn't. The only difference is that tulips couldn't tweet. Some say tulip mania was a story about stupidity. but really, it's a story about hope. The hope of getting rich fast, of being special, of finally beating the system. And hope, as history keeps proving, is the only investment that always goes broke. So next time someone tells you, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it can only go up. Remember, 4 centuries ago, people said the exact same thing about a flower. People say history doesn't repeat, it just loves to cosplay.
Same thing.
And right on cue, humanity always buys the VIP tickets. 300 years after the tulip craze, the world found new flowers, only this time they bloomed on computer screens. In the 1990s, Americans went wild for the internet. If a company had "com" at the end of its name, people believed it would change the world. Pets. Com stock skyrocketed, even though it hadn't sold a single dog collar. When the bubble burst, Wall Street stared at each other and said, "Must be a glitch." Sound familiar? The same energy as those Dutch traders in 1637. The market's just taking a nap. Then came 2008. The new tulip was called real estate. Banks handed out loans like Christmas gifts. People bought houses to sell to people who didn't exist yet. All of America was hypnotized by the mantra, housing prices never go down. Spoiler, they did. Hard. Half of Wall Street evaporated. The other half started a podcast about how to get rich again. Before anyone could learn a lesson, the world entered another flower season, crypto. Bitcoin, Ethereum, even meme coins shaped like dogs. People called it decentralized technology, but up close it looked more like centralized insanity. Then came NFTs, pixel art selling for the price of a Manhattan apartment. And the best part, they used the same logic the Dutch used 400 years earlier. It doesn't matter if you understand it, just buy early. Humanity, it seems, has a genetic case of FOMO. We're born afraid of missing out, and history keeps teasing us. Relax, kids, there's always another bubble coming. From tulip mania to crypto fever, 2 things have never changed: our greed and our belief that we're smarter than the last generation. If the 17th century had tulips, the 21st has Wi-Fi tulips. We still buy hope, just wrapped in shinier packaging. As one historian put it best, humanity learns nothing from history, but at least we've learned to repeat it with better design. If the tulip mania taught us one thing, it's this: people never really bought flowers, they bought dreams. Dreams that if you grabbed the next hot thing, you'd change your life. Dreams that maybe, just maybe, this time you'd escape history's rules, as if greed were an app that just needed a better update. From tulips to tech stocks, real estate to crypto, no one was buying the product. They were buying the story that came with it. A tulip bulb on its own was nothing special. But call it rare, exclusive, or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And suddenly it became a ticket to the VIP section of human fantasy. People weren't buying flowers, they were buying the feeling of being clever, of being early, of being in the know. And if they lost money, no big deal, they still had a story to tell. Because even failure with the right branding feels like success. The funniest part, every bubble starts not with greed, but with hope. Hope to be rich, hope to be different, hope that this time we've evolved. But hope without reality is just the luxury version of delusion. So every time the world catches a new fever, I imagine a Dutch trader somewhere up in the clouds, sipping wine, smirking. Nice one, kids, but our flowers smelled better. Maybe that's how history keeps teasing us, by giving each generation its own shiny balloon to chase. The real lesson of tulip mania isn't don't be greedy. Because honestly, greed built half of civilization. It's a reminder to tell the difference between a dream and an illusion. Dreams make us strive. Illusions make us blind. The difference, reason. So the next time someone promises you a sure thing, just smile, take a sip of coffee, and remember, they said the exact same thing about tulips. Here's the irony of every golden age. The moment we start putting a price tag on beauty, we're already losing it. Tulips were once just flowers, simple, gentle things that made people smile in the morning or express love without a word. But the day they became symbols of wealth, status, and I'm better than you, they stopped being flowers. They became invoices for vanity. The day people stopped admiring beauty and started appraising it. Beauty died right there in their hands. The tulip story isn't just economics. It's a mirror showing the limits of human intelligence. We're smart enough to invent markets, contracts, and investment strategies, but dumb enough to believe that beauty doubles in value if we double our greed. Beauty doesn't yield profit, it yields feeling. But feelings don't trade on Wall Street, so we treat them like they are worthless. When people took flowers to the trading floor, they didn't just lose money, they lost the ability to see beauty without owning it. And maybe that's the real cost of tulip mania, because the moment we can't enjoy anything, without calculating its return on investment, we may live in big houses and carry thick wallets, but our souls are broke. Some say the last tulips finally withered. But no, they still bloom in paintings, in stories, and in every new generation that repeats the same mistake, just with trendier packaging. History never dies. It just changes perfume and whispers softly. So, what will you sell this time to buy your next illusion? And that was the Tulip Bubble, proof that humans don't really learn from history. We just get better at marketing it. If you enjoyed this little time travel over coffee, give the algorithm a wink, hit that like button, and subscribe for more weird stories about how humanity keeps tripping over the same rock in fancier shoes. Now tell me, what's today's tulip in your eyes? Crypto, real estate, or maybe your favorite influencer coin? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment like it's a clue from history. Until next time, keep your curiosity blooming. And remember, sometimes the most expensive things are the ones that once were free.